All right. Top 3 players at each position. Jamey, who are the top 3 quarterbacks to get?
Sam Darnold would be one. So if you need a quarterback for this week, I like the setup for him taking on Washington and then long-term again. So after he gets Washington in week 9, he gets Arizona week 10, Tennessee in week 12. I forget how they play in week 11. And then Minnesota in week 13. So like the upcoming schedule for him. Trevor Lawrence would be second. Like Dave mentioned, he gets a great matchup against the Raiders, but then it's Houston and then the Chargers after that. So don't necessarily want to start Lawrence in those games. But for 1 week, he could be good. And then I put Justin Fields third, just with the hope that he remains the starter. I know it's not the easiest schedule coming out of the bye for them. But when Justin Fields has Garrett Wilson, and you know what he's capable of with his legs, he can get you 22, he can get you 29, he can get you 30. So if you need somebody else for this week, the third quarterback would be Tua. How much you want to buy into Tua, who's had 4 solid games, 3 crappy ones, and 1 in between. So 1 with 16 points. He's had 3 with 8 or less, and then 4 with 19 or more. So with his matchup this week on Thursday against the Ravens, as we saw, the Ravens defense did look a little bit better, taking on Caleb Williams, who was at the goal line 25 times and couldn't get a touchdown.
Yeah.
Maybe Tua, building off the Falcons game, is someone you want to buy into as the third quarterback for this week. But for the 2 that are widely available would be Darnold and Lawrence. If you want to throw Kyler Murray in there, obviously he's somebody that you could put as a top 3 priority as well.
Yeah, I'll just ask you that. Kyler Murray or Sam Darnold? Who would you prefer? Kyler's got the Cowboys.
I would prefer Darnold just because of the long-term standing, because I like the matchup for them this week as well. So I think both guys can have a good week this week, but I feel more comfortable with Darnold moving forward. But certainly Kyler's right there.
Yeah, like if you've got a quarterback who's on bye, or if you just want somebody for 1 week for whatever reason, I think Kyler makes sense. And I think you can make the case for Lawrence over Darnold. But you're right about long-term. Like if you're streaming quarterbacks, Darnold could be your guy. They play the Rams in week 11, so that might not be a game I'd be really excited to start Sam Darnold in.
By the way, we don't know that Kyler Murray is.
That's true. So he's a Texas guy who's been resting. I think he's gearing up for this game.
Well, you had Schefter tweet on Monday, expected to return Lamar Jackson, Kyler Murray, I believe Bryce Young maybe was the other one.
JJ McCarthy.
Oh, JJ McCarthy, sorry.
Yeah. Okay. So we are expecting Kyler Murray to play. What last thing on that before we get to the running backs. So if Brock Purdy, what do you think about the Niners quarterbacks? As the Giants have been pretty bad against the last 3 quarterbacks they've faced. It's just Hurts twice and Bo Nix, and especially the last 2. It's coincided with these secondary injuries. They suffered another one. What do you think about streaming Mac Jones or Purdy if he's available? How would they compare to this group of Darnold, Lawrence, and even Kyler?
Purdy would be one for me.
Sure.
Okay.
At the position. Jones, it just feels as if they're using him more as a game manager. I get it, the last 2 games. Atlanta at full strength. Houston obviously has been very good, so hard to judge. Prior to that, he was much better, at least in the first 2 starts of this 4-game stretch. Or at least, the first start of this 4-game stretch. He's kind of been, trailing in the wrong direction, but I don't know how healthy he's been. So I would put him behind Darnold and Lawrence, for example. Yeah. But Purdy, I'd feel more comfortable with if he comes back.
But he's the guy that I guess I would start with in deeper leagues, because I would assume that Kyler, Darnold, Lawrence are all rostered already. But if he ends up not playing, then you've got to go back to the waiver wire and look for a Tua, Mariota, McCarthy. It's going to get ugly, but Mac Jones would be my placeholder at quarterback.
Dave, who are the top 3 running backs?
You might have heard us talking about Tyrone Tracy earlier in the show. He's numero uno. I almost think regardless of what you need, you should prioritize him just because of the opportunity that's in front of him. I've got Zonovan Knight 2. I've got Tyjae Spears 3. But if you can stash, arguably the best stash you can make this week is Isaiah Davis, 72% available. We just saw him play really well against Cincinnati. And again, it's Cincinnati, but Breece Hall's on the trade block. The trade deadline is, sometime around a week from now, depending on what Adam's calendar and calculator says. But Isaiah Davis can end up being the lead running back for the Jets for a couple of weeks at least. And then when Braylon Allen comes back, he could still be the lead guy there. And he's out there 72% of leagues, a great running back to stash at least through the trade deadline.
Do you think, we've talked a lot, hey, Rico Dowdle needs more touches, he's been better. Do you think that there's any of that building for Tyjae Spears? because he has been so much better than Tony Pollard.
He's played more snaps than Pollard since he's come back from injury. It's been really close, but even the fact that it's been really close is good. He certainly looks like the better running back. He's the guy they prefer to have on the field when they're chasing points. He's a good receiver out of the backfield. So Pollard's another guy who could low-key get traded, because I don't think he's a bad player. He's just in a bad situation on a team that's going to be a negative game script all the time. And so whoever that running back is that's going to play in that type of situation in Tennessee, that's the one that I'd want to at least have on my bench. I don't know if I want to count on Spears as a starter. He only has one game with double-digit PPR points since coming back, and it was last week because he scored a touchdown. But I do think that there is an opportunity for his role to grow.
All right, wide receiver news, wide receiver priorities. Jamey, who are the top three?
Franklin, we mentioned. I think he's worth adding based on 18 targets the last 2 weeks, and hopefully it's something that is going to continue to build off of. Jamey Eisenberg would be second, just based on what he's done the last 2 weeks. And there's some thought that Calvin Ridley gets traded also, but he's dealing with a hamstring injury, so he's been out the last 2 games. We don't know when he's going to return. And I put Darius Slayton third. I think we feel a lot different about him if he catches that 68-yard touchdown, and we're looking at the guy that we thought was going to fill in for Malik Neighbors. And now that they may be throwing the ball a little bit more because the run game could get stagnant, I think Slayton has an opportunity to hopefully finish the season strong after coming back from missing the previous 2 games with a hamstring injury.
Not even a question. Travis Hunter would be ahead of these 3, right?
Yes. And, you can throw out these 3 names and you want to go Christian Watson, Josh Downs, and Trey Tucker, and I have no problem with that either. It's just one of these positions where it's not one guy standing so much taller over the field that you can just let somebody else spend their fab someplace else, and you can go a little bit cheaper and find some of these guys that are going to continue to produce. And in the case of Watson, could be the number 1 receiver for the Packers. In the case of Slayton, could be the number 1 receiver for the Giants. In the case of Downs, prior to his concussion, was a top 3 guy for me. That week was number 1 for Dave. Just looking at the way Daniel Jones is playing, he's got a great opportunity. Also, just so many guys at this position. Yeah. Juwan Jennings is available in our range that we talk about, 64% rostered. And we know when Brock Purdy comes back, he's going to do well. Plus, again, Atlanta and Houston, 7 targets each of those 2 weeks. Did not do much with it. Now he gets the free space essentially in the Giants. So if Purdy comes back, he could go nuts. So there's just so many guys available at this spot. I just wouldn't spend too much fab on it and kind of let the position sort of dictate itself for me if I needed to pick somebody up at a wide receiver spot this week.
Okay. Those Titans wide receivers are fairly interesting too, because when's Calvin Ridley going to come back? We mentioned probably not going to get traded, but
well, he might.
He might. They have a bye next week. Cam Ward's averaging 250 passing yards per game in his last 4 games, which would be 10th best, for the full season. I'm not saying he's going to do that rest of the year, but they actually are throwing the ball a lot, and they're throwing for a lot of yards. They're just not scoring. Okay, and tight ends, Dave. Who are the top 3 tight ends?
Double check for Oronde Gadsden, but he's already rostered in well over 70% of CBS leagues. Juwan Johnson's my favorite. If you need a tight end this week, he's out there in 2/3 of leagues. Otherwise, I'm looking to grab a tight end to stash. It's Njoku. He's also on the trade block. Harold Fannin, whose stock would go crazy if Njoku was traded, and Mason Taylor, who's most widely available of these tight ends at 70%. And had a great finish for the Jets against Cincinnati. Hopefully he can build on that and see some more regular targets moving forward.
Yeah, it's weird. A lot of the tight ends we usually look at for streaming, some of them are on bye, but also you're getting Bowers. Hopefully you're getting Bowers, McBride, Laporta back. So perhaps this is a week where people won't.
And AJ Barner.
And AJ Barner, yeah. All right. Well, now it's time for coverage you can count on. Sponsored by Nationwide. Jamey, give me a DST to stream this week.
The Rams. No better defense than the Rams. Taking on the Saints, they've been miserable. You saw what Tampa Bay's defense did against them. Spencer Rattler's a turnover machine. He's going to get sacked a lot, especially since they lost their center 2 weeks ago. If Tyler Shuck starts, it's a brutal spot to put a rookie on the road. I know the environment's not bad, but the defense is just, playing fantastic. They just added a cornerback as well, making the trade for McCreary. So I think it's going to be very difficult for this Saints offense. And you mentioned it, Kamara got banged up in the game. If he's out, not that he's been doing very much, but it just could be very, very ugly, and the Rams defense should be a league winner.
I love the Rams DST this week, but if the Seahawks are out there, and both of them are right around 40%, Rams a little bit higher, a little bit more available, I might take Seattle because their DST has played great all year. They've got a great matchup against the Commanders. especially if Jaden Daniels doesn't come back. I know it looks like that he might come back. And then after the Commanders, who do they've got? They've got Arizona. The Rams on the road will be tough. At Tennessee is a dream matchup. Minnesota at Atlanta. I mean, they'll take you right up to the fantasy playoffs. They play Carolina in week 17 too. So maybe they'll be your like 1A DST, and you'll find a second DST for those matchups that they have against the Rams and one other tough game. Indianapolis is in the fantasy playoffs. That'll be tough on them. But I might prefer the Seahawks long-term to the Rams.
Yeah, and there's also Jamey's list of DSTs. The Rams are one. The Lions facing Minnesota. They've been pretty good this year, the Lions, especially at home.
And McCarthy with the beat-up offensive line, too.
Yeah,
yes,
right.
Huge.
Seahawks are third. Jaguars get the Raiders. It's pretty good. This is one of the better weeks, I feel like, talking about these DST streamers. So that's something to keep in mind when if you're putting in fab bids. Is that, the Rams are obviously the prize here, but that doesn't mean that that you have to spend a lot, because you could just default to the Lions or the Seahawks or the Jaguars and be fine.
And to Dave's point about the Seahawks, I feel the same about the Rams. Like, these are defenses that have played well all season long. You can get by with them rest of season.
Jamey, that was coverage you can count on, sponsored by Nationwide. Jamey, kickers, Dad.
You mentioned on our show, or no, you mentioned off the air, because I said you didn't ask me about the kickers. Brandon McManus, so taking on the Panthers at home. Kaimi Fairbairn, which should be a low-scoring, potentially field goal fest against the Broncos. And then, how do you pronounce the Patriots kicker? Andres
Borregales.
He's coming off a strong game, and Jake Bates, just avoid the environments and the weather, kicking indoors.